Today, we are highlighting an entomologist, and this is George. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, thanks. Very good.
Good. Okay, so what do you do here? What is your title?
Well, I'm a postdoc working with ants.
Okay.
And I've been studying them in Africa and now in Madagascar.
Okay.
That's what I do.
Very cool. We'll get to kind of your field work a little bit later, but why ants? What inspires you about ants?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. They're very cool and exciting and pretty fierce creatures, so everybody should be interested in ants.
Okay, we'll get there. I think some people are scratching their heads a little bit. What's going on?
Yeah, we'll see later.
Yeah, we'll see later, exactly. First of all, what makes an ant? Why is it not a beetle or a butterfly or what else?
Well, there's some very interesting features about ants, and the first thing is that they don't come alone. They live socially, so they live in groups. They have a queen and the workers are special because unlike bees and wasps, they don't have wings. So they're actually quite related to ants, to bees and wasps, and not to beetles.
Okay.
So beetles, for example, they have wings in contrast to ants. Then also one feature which is special about ants is the antennae. They are kneeled like at my elbow.
Okay.
So they can wave around with them, and they use them as sensory organs to touch each other and to also smell the environment, which is very important, more important than their eyes. So they have also glands for communication. They use pheromones as their kind of language to talk to each other. And they have also a very important gland, which is this one right here. And it's called the metapleural gland. It's important because there the ants produce fungicidal and herbicidal, no, not herbicidal, but antibiotic substances to keep their nests clean from bacteria and from fungi so that they don't get overgrown by these organisms.
That's pretty cool. Have your own built-in home cleaner.
Exactly.
Right on your back.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we know there's a lot of variety of ants out there. I'm sure you guys have seen quite a few of them. How many types do we know of so far?
Well, so far as of this day, there are 15,643 species of ants.
Is anybody surprised by that number?
So I did the count this morning. No, that was a joke, of course. And maybe the same amount is still out there and unknown, undescribed. So that's where I come in and describe new species of ants.
Definitely. So we've probably seen some in our homes, right? I get some when it gets warm out, definitely. How do the ones that you're studying or other ants compare to the average household ant?
Well, actually, the ones that I study in the tropical areas, they're usually very different from the ones you find in your houses. The ones in your homes, they're very adapted to humans, to our environment. They are generalized. They don't have very specific requirements for their life. And these ants, in comparison, they are often found in very small places, maybe just a few rainforests in the tropics. And you can see the large variety of just a few of these different ants. And each one looks a little bit different. The mandibles have different functions. When they look different, they're used for different functions. The eyes are sometimes hidden under a large shield or completely absent or big like these. So each one has a different function.
Definitely. Lots of variety. If you guys want to come on and grab a seat in the front, you're welcome to sit on the floor. Might be a little bit more comfortable. With all these shapes and sizes that we have in the ant world, what roles do ants play in the habitat as a whole, in the ecosystem?
Well, ants are often called ecosystem engineers. They have functions like, for example, soil aeration. With building their nests in the soil, they get a lot of tunneling and air inside the soil, which is important for plants to grow.
Yeah.
The same is true for nutrient cycling. They accumulate a lot of nutrients in and near their nests where, again, plant seedlings can grow. They often also disperse seeds of many plants, so they help them grow into new habitats, into new places. They have prey and predator roles.
Yeah, the list goes on.
This one here is a predator, so it's hunting small columbella and springtails. And these ants over there, they are leafcutter ants. They do some kind of farming, which we get to, I think, in the next slide.
Definitely. Has anybody in the audience heard about the similarities between ants and humans? Please let us know. You've talked about this before. How are we similar to ants?
Well, actually, we are quite similar and copying ants in quite many ways. So ants, long before us, they invented agriculture and breeding of farm animals. And in this case down there, they grow fungi in the nests, which they harvest as their sole resource of food. They don't eat anything besides this fungus, and for that they collect the leaves from living plants and use them as a fertilizer for the fungi to grow. And while others are fierce predators, they have a very strict organization in their nests, and they have soldiers which perform warlike functions often, or defense of the colony.
Pretty good similarities to humans. Yeah, farmers before we were, right?
Long time before our ancestors climbed from the trees.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Well, now that we know why ants in general are so cool, can you tell us about your work that you do in Africa? And he's been studying in Madagascar and East Africa, I think you mentioned at the beginning. What do you do there? Let us know.
Well, in the field, I collect a lot of ants from different habitats inside the forest, where we have these beautiful and very fierce predators. They often occur in big swarms in millions of workers. Yeah. They cover huge areas on the forest ground where they just eat everything that they can, which doesn't escape fast enough. So I've been bitten enough times to think of them as a very fierce animal, which they are in one way, because a colony is always one individual. At least that's how we see it. The ants are all related and sisters, and as one individual, they are more important and more hungry than, for example, other predators in a rainforest.
So why Africa out of all the locations in the world for research?
Africa is a special place. I mean, it's mostly known for its poverty of the people also, but for its richness and diversity of large mammals, for example, of ecosystems. And in this case, more important is not what we know about Africa, but what we don't know. And in the case of ants, there's still a lot to learn, and that's why I wanted to study ants in Africa.
Exactly. So if you're imagining him out in the field trying to collect ants, how would you guys do it? How would you collect ants in the fields of Africa?
That's a good question.
Any guesses? Maybe put some food out, perhaps? Well, you do have some cool tools, but maybe before we jump into those, tell us what a day in the field is like in Africa.
Well, it's very diverse. Often it's complicated to go to the field in the first place because some of the gear might just not be working on the day I want to do some field work, and maybe the car doesn't work, and stuff like that, which always gets in the way some way or the other. But mostly it's hard work. We have to travel into the forest oftentimes, and then we have to do a lot of collecting and sifting of leaf litter, which is our prime method of collecting. So we take the leaf litter from the ground in the forest, put it in here. There's a mesh inside this bag. There we sift, and it comes out here. A lot of small material with insects and other arthropods. And then we fill these little mesh bags with the sifted litter and hang it up in a dry place in these large bags. And they fall into a cup filled with ethanol, with alcohol. That's how we mostly collect ants. And that's also how we get a lot of diversity. In some samples, we find thousands of ant specimens, maybe from 30 different colonies in just a small space of forest floor. And that's where you see that ants are really important because they are so numerous. They outnumber us, for example, not just in the number, but also in the biomass. They are heavier than all other animals on the planet together.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite parts about field work?
Well, it's always a little adventurous, and of course you get to see a lot of diversity of other animals too, the monkeys, and there's a bird nesting in my shirt, which I just forgot in the station, and after a few days it laid some eggs. Yeah, that's pretty exciting stuff that happens to you in the field. And then, of course, also we have the chance sometimes to teach other people about what we know about ants and what we don't know, so that they can, again, go out in the field and get some more data.
But all the field work that you put in, you have a lot of work that you have to do back here at the academy, right?
Yes, a lot of.
A lot of work. So can you tell us about that aspect of your work, what you do when you come back home?
Well, as a matter of fact, the field work is just the smallest part of my work. The big challenge is really being in the office at the microscope, sorting through all these samples, which are full of ants and other arthropods, and then trying to find out how many species, which species we have, and if we have new species, we have to decide if we can describe them, if it's feasible in a reasonable amount of time, and if we have the important materials ready. And then I have to do a lot of measuring and describing, so it's very formal work that you have to do in the office, and it's sometimes tedious and unnerving, but mostly I enjoy it very much.
So how would you tell one species from the next? For example, in these pictures.
That's a good question for the audience, I think. How would you people decide that the upper two ants are different than the lower two? Actually, this is a soldier cased worker, and that's just a normal cased worker ant.
Can you guys see differences between these?
So this is one species, this is the other species. And they look different if you look close enough.
Any big differences? What do you think? The color, definitely.
That's a very good thing, yes. You should always check if the color maybe is different. What else?
Anything else? Yeah, in the back. The top one is bigger?
Yes, the head is bigger compared to the size of the rest of the body. That's true. Also, you see a little spine here in this ant, and up there this spine is much longer and much more powerful. And then also some other features. The number of hairs is important, and the outline of this part of the body. And there's a lot of details that we have to check in order to see. Yes? The antennae, yes, the antennae are a little bit different too. Sometimes they are longer or shorter. Yes.
And I can only imagine, this is blown up, a huge picture, but you have these small little ants that you're working off of. Yeah.
So we use the microscope for almost everything that we do in the laboratory and also in the field, because otherwise you can't see any differences between these ants.
Yeah, I can imagine. So why do you study these ants? Why is it so important to learn about the diversity of them and what's going on with them?
Because we some kind of depend on ants. They're, as I said, the ecosystem engineers, and they provide a lot of services to the environment, like the seed dispersal and the soil aeration. So they help plants grow, they help the environment to stay clean, because they also remove dead bodies and do the nutrient cycling, which is all very important. And I think it's also important to see how they use the environment in a sustainable way and don't destroy everything along the way.
Very good point. Any questions from the audience at this point about ants, ant species? Yes. How do you name a new species?
That's a good question. Well, there's actually a whole code. It's almost a book which tells me how I have to name species. There's so many rules that oftentimes I have to read the book and see what the restrictions are and the possibilities. And then when I know what I can do, then I just have to think of a good name which I like and which might maybe resemble a little bit of the personality of the ant, or just my personality, whatever.
Yeah. Do you have an example of a species you can think of that describes an ant personality? Put you on the spot.
Well, sometimes you can name, for example, if a species is very hairy, then you give it the Latin translation for hairy, and or the coloration could be a good name, or things like that.
I like that. Any more questions? No? Well, now we know why ants are pretty cool. We can appreciate them next time they are crawling around our homes or in the park somewhere. We'll be here for a few more minutes afterwards. I think you also have an ant tray with you.
Yes, I brought some actual specimens to look at. Everybody who's interested can check these out.
Oh,
I
definitely.
just did a short sweep in the collection, and we have millions of ants maybe, and these are just a few species of the whole variety that's down there.
Yeah, so you guys can come on up and ask us questions, but can you join me in giving George a round of applause, please, for coming out? Thank you so much for telling us about your research.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon, everyone.